Welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to talk about our next set of scenarios, and these scenarios are going to be related to autoscaling. Now, autoscaling is pretty widespread throughout DevOps. We're thinking about high availability, elasticity, controlling costs. We can use autoscaling with blue-green deployments. So obviously, we need to know this service very well. So I'll repeat, just give yourself a couple minutes to work through these scenarios, and I would recommend doing them yourself before listening to my interpretation of the scenario. So this would be a good time to pause the lesson and work out the scenario. But I'll just assume you've done that, and let's go ahead and talk about the scenarios. So our first scenario. So we're bootstrapping instances in our autoscaling group. And this bootstrapping takes 10 minutes. Our instances are being reported as in service before bootstrapping completes, and you're getting application alarms. All right, so we've seen this. This should be fairly easy. So basically our bootstrapping is taking 10 minutes, but the instances are being reported as in service. Users may be hitting our web app before the app is ready. What are our keywords? Well, bootstrapping is probably a keyword. When I'm thinking about bootstrapping and autoscaling groups, and specifically this type of problem, as a solution, I'm thinking about lifecycle hooks. So we need to use lifecycle hooks, and remember, we need to pause our instances in a pending wait state. And in doing so, that's going to allow our bootstrapping to complete successfully. So part of our solution is going to have to be lifecycle hooks, pending wait state. Now remember, when you apply a lifecycle hook, the default wait period is 60 minutes, and most likely you're not going to need 60 minutes. So we can use API commands to take our instance out of the pending wait state before 60 minutes is up, or we can just wait for it. But it's probably preferable to send a signal to end the pending wait state. But given this scenario, I think that's all we need. We just need a lifecycle hook, and we need to pause this to allow our bootstrapping to complete successfully. So let's go ahead and click on our solution. And there we go. Create an autoscaling group lifecycle hook to hold the instance in a pending wait state until bootstrapping is complete. Move to pending complete when bootstrapping is finished, and we can do this with an API command, or we can just wait for that 60 minutes to expire. So really, keyword bootstrapping with autoscaling groups, I'm thinking about lifecycle hooks. So that one's pretty straightforward. Let's move on to the next one. All right, you've used CloudFormation to deploy an application in an autoscaling group. Now, first of all, we have used CloudFormation. So we have a stack, we have our resources, but one key point here, when you use CloudFormation to deploy your infrastructure, if you need to change your infrastructure, it's best practice to use CloudFormation as well. In other words, perform your updates within the stack. Don't update the resources individually. If you update resources individually and you have to do a rollback, the rollback might not work. So it's good to be consistent when using CloudFormation. So that's one first hint I'm thinking about. Anything I do, I probably want to do in CloudFormation. All right, the autoscaling group is at its maximum 6 instances due to high CPU utilization, and the utilization is still too high, despite the autoscaling group maxing out. All right, so I have an autoscaling group, high CPU utilization, so we probably have a CloudWatch alarm based on CPU utilization. And that's just kind of a side note. I don't know that that's going to be part of the solution because it's constant. So if we're checking on CPU utilization with CloudWatch, that's not going to change unless the scenario tells us to change it. So let's just keep that in mind. So based on this information, we decide to upgrade our instances from T2 to C3. How can we do this with no downtime? So I got a couple clues here. Again, we're using CloudFormation, so most likely we want to execute our solution in CloudFormation. We have an auto-scaling group. We need to upgrade our instances. Now, instances in an auto-scaling group, there's another clue. What are we talking about here? We're talking about a launch configuration with T2 Micro in our launch configuration. Now, we can't change that launch configuration, but what we can do is create a new launch configuration. But remember, we're using a CloudFormation template. So let's let CloudFormation do that for us. So I think we're going to create a new template with the only change being a different instance type. And then we can update our stack with that new template. So I think that's part of our solution that covers the instances. Now, how can we do this with no downtime? Now remember, in CloudFormation, I'm thinking of two things. I'm thinking about an update policy and auto-scaling rolling update in our CloudFormation template. Remember, the rolling update is going to update these instances one by one or whatever number you specify, but it's not going to update them all at once. So you're always going to remain up and not have any downtime. So I'm thinking our solution needs to be a new template to incorporate this new instance type, and we need to do auto-scaling rolling updates. We want to be consistent and we want to stay in CloudFormation. So I think that's our solution. Let's take a look. All right. Update the launch config in your template. We also want to add an update policy to our template and specify auto-scaling rolling update. We then perform a stack update with the new template, which has this C3. The auto-scaling rolling update is going to gracefully incorporate these C3s into our auto-scaling group, replacing the T2s, but not taking our app down. That's the whole point of the rolling update. So that's our solution. So go ahead and mark this lesson complete, and let's move on to our next scenarios.